Hey, greetings everyone, and welcome to week three. I wanted to take a few moments on the front end just to do a little bit of an overview of what you're going to be expecting going into this week. First off, I want to say you're doing a great job. I'm really enjoying the conversations we're having on the discussion posts. I feel like there's a lot of give and take, some great both wrestling with the material, but also kind of poking holes at times. And I think that's all very healthy and a part of a meaningful conversation that we're all invested and involved in. I wanted to take a few moments also to say that for these first few weeks, some of these lectures are a part of the class that I've posted in the past, and they're oftentimes referencing some of the neighboring that I was doing while I was in Pekin, Illinois. My current context, and I know most of you know this, but I just want to remind us all, is that I'm living in Lincoln Park, and Lincoln Park is one of the neighborhoods of Chicago. And I've been sent here as basically a missionary to the city of Chicago. And so this idea of neighboring is substantial for me. And it's something that as we're going through this class, I'm being reminded of all the different ways that I need to be practicing this in my own life. And so when I first arrived here, I've made consistent efforts to find myself positioned and placed amongst the people of my neighborhood in very intentional ways. My wife and I, whether it's visiting the same coffee shop or walking the same walk, meeting our neighbors, we've got dogs, which creates opportunities for conversation. If people are sitting outside in the fall, spring, or summer, we try to stop by and have conversations with them. We try to meet the people in our building, and I've actually been able to have coffee with one of the gentlemen that lives just above us, but it's an intentional process, and given just the dynamics that we've been talking about in class in terms of business, it's a practice that we have to continually reappropriate in our lives. And I want to say that the book Love Where You Live, where you've already written the response to, and I'm looking forward to reading your responses, has been really helpful for me as well, because it's been that reminder of why I'm in Chicago and what I'm called to do while I'm living here in Chicago. I also wanted to say this. So going into this week, the language that you're going to be hearing throughout this week's lectures at times is pretty heavy. I mean, I'm getting into some pretty significant sociological and theological terminology throughout these lectures, and so and they feel a bit rushed, but I think that part of that is I'm trying to do these lectures in about a 10-minute span so that you can watch them. And so forgive me if at times they seem a little quick or a little fast. You may have to watch them a time or two to be able to catch all the information. But in lecture one, I'm going to introduce you to a concept called fundamental attribution error. And that'll become clearer as you watch the first lecture. But basically the heart of that is this idea that we often attribute to other people internal characteristics that we wouldn't want attributed to ourselves. And we do this by making snap judgments, inferences, and stereotypes. And I'm going to explain that in further detail in the first lecture, but I really want you to kind of think about the ways in which maybe that happens in your own life, and how our capacity to exercise a ministry of presence, of being with others, of standing with them, of sharing proximity, of listening to their story, of asking questions before presuming upon them the reasons why they do certain things. I want to encourage you to evaluate kind of where you are in that journey and in that process. In the second lecture, we're going to talk about three metaphors: walls, boundaries, and dividing lines. So I'm basically laying out in this set of lectures that relationships exist on a continuum. And so our goal, our hopes are to move people towards brother and sister, right? This idea of I am my brother's keeper. But people kind of find themselves alien, stranger, threat, friend, people that we serve or help, all the way through towards that movement of mutuality, reciprocity, that care and that kindness that we give to one another, that movement on that span of relationships. And so as we're taking that journey, I want you to understand that there's a movement that takes place and a way of posturing ourselves in terms of that movement to make that journey through that continuum. And then in the third lecture, so if the first lecture sets us up with some of the challenges, the second lecture is going to talk to us about the movement. The third lecture is going to talk to us about the kind of virtues necessary to take that journey. And so we're gonna look at things like mercy and empathy and compassion, all of which are significantly important to understand the nature of neighboring in this world. And so we're on a bit of a journey. Now I want to remind you that we are on a journey, this sort of narrative arc for this entire class, kind of setting the stage, setting the problem on the front end, and then moving towards how can we appropriate it and what steps can we take to live this out, but not only for us, but how can we encourage and model for others how they can live it out as well. So you're doing great. We're on this journey together, and I'm really looking forward to some of the discoveries that you're making, even as you start to thinking about the people that are around you. Give you a quick insight into this. As I was working on your responses and starting to look at your papers, and then working on to make sure all my lectures were set up for this week, I'm sitting here working on Christian neighboring, and it hit me. There's neighbors around me that I haven't checked in on. So as I was working tonight, I sent out a text to one of my close neighbors. Just lives 2 buildings down from us, and someone that I had met at coffee, and we've become friends, and I hadn't seen him in a while. So I sent him a text, and I knew his mom was sick, and I said, "Man, I'm praying for you. I hope you're doing okay." And he said, "Well, actually, my mom died last week." And so he thanked me profusely for checking in on him. And I told him, I said, "Hey, when you get back, let's get coffee so that you can talk." And he was like, "I'd love to do that." It's those little reminders that I think the Spirit prompts and brings to our attention, brings to our heart and mind, that we have to respond to, that we have to take the time to respond to, and send that text, make that phone call, send that note. Do those little things, because little things matter. Another real quick story. So the person that I replaced here in Lincoln Park had lived here for 7 years in the building that I'm living in the space that I'm living in, and he built a really amazing relationship with the lady across the hall. And to confessionally, my wife and I we have not built that same relationship, but we're working towards it. But every 7 years, or for the 7 years they lived here, every year she goes to Florida, and which is great. And she's a wonderful human being. She leads our building association. She's just a phenomenal human being. And so the first year she went to Florida, the person that I replaced, he and his wife and his kids decorated her door with a welcome home when she came back from Florida. And for 7 years that they lived here, every year that she went to Florida, they decorated her door. Well, I get a package in the mail, and then I got a text from Lauren, and he said, "Hey man, I know that Gail is on vacation, and in Florida we've got this little thing that we do." And so in the bag was all of the stuff that I would need to decorate her door for a welcome home. And he said to me, as we were texting, his last thing to me, he goes, "I'm just reminded little things matter." And so Angie and I decorated her door, and she came home, and she was just so blown away by Lauren and Courtney's thoughtfulness and the kids' thoughtfulness. And it was, again, a reminder of me of the kind of intentionality that neighboring takes, and how many steps we have to take along this journey. And so we're on this journey together, and we're leaning into what God is up to, and I'm encouraged by all that God is doing through you. And have a great week, and we will see. Make sure, remember, we do have our phone call this week. Oh, that's my dog. That's my dog. So, just in case you wonder. All right. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.